welcome to SMPTE. We're here with Josh Rizzo, a technologist, who is going to talk to us about eSports, what it is, what it might mean to our industry, why you should maybe check it out. Josh, what is eSports?
Esports has been growing very quickly in scope, but also definition. So I think the easiest way to understand esports from an entertainment production perspective is it has almost all the elements of a live athletic sport production with the benefit of having a virtual arena. I'm still working on ways to try to help folks understand, but there are still cameras, tons of cameras, multi-viewers, miles of cables, a lot of traditional sports fly pack truck vendors participate in esports production.
A football game,
yes,
or basketball game or something like that.
Absolutely. There is an analog in the gear that's used. It's just configured slightly differently. But the actual competition that's going on is in a virtual space with virtual cameras. In a lot of ways, if you walk the floors of NAB, you'd see set after virtual set, right? Where they have cameras that can fly around in 3D space and they put you in one place. And it's like that, but now the talent is avatared into 3D space and you get to cover that however you want. So from a TD perspective, it's kind of amazing because you have a lot to work with depending on the game type.
So even dialing it back just a tiny
Sure.
bit for people that have no idea, it's essentially gamers and people watching these people play games.
So as you said, to back it up from the beginning, a little bit of history, highly competitive strategic game playing has been with us for our entire humanity, going back thousands of years. What we call, what soccer is thousands of years old. Chess, Go, these are all strategy-based games that are often about territory and achievement against teams of other people. Now, chess in Go is very one-on-one, but if you look at soccer, it's a team. Football, very team-based, but they're always competitions for resources or territory. That's a very common theme of gaming forever. So going back even in the very early days, people would play like chess by mail. I don't know if you've ever heard that. People would in the honor system, record their chess moves and mail it to their competitor. There were some places in New York City, I think movies were made, chess would be played in parks competitively. Competition with these strategic games is as old as the games. People betting on who's going to win a game, people having favorite game players. With the invention of the onslaught of the computer, a lot of these games were made digital, but before the internet, they were played locally. Then with the internet, you can't stop a human from wanting to watch another human play, and that grew through watching online. Some of the early days of watching people play online was loading the game up and having it listen to the gameplay server and show you rendering on your computer, not a video. Your computer would be rendering the game as other people would play it, so you could watch what they were doing, but your game would, again, render out the game in real time. That had its pros and cons, and then what they would also do is someone would do that, and then, this is the very early days of the internet, do a shoutcast, like a live radio stream. And other folks, and this is, I'm dating myself at the same time, but in the early days of the internet, late 90s, early 2000s, internet radio was a thing, it was very popular, and people would make radio channels to watch the game on their computer and do color commentary and do call outs. So other people that would do the same thing would have someone with an expert eye that they put in their ear or on the speakers and listen as they watch the game. Very homebrew, very cumbersome. With the advent of YouTube, folks would capture games, not live, capture them, then go back and lay down commentary.
Yes.
And upload those.
Yeah, my son, my 14-year-old son, watches that all the time. He's watching them play on YouTube. So yes.
And video game content on YouTube, this was some statistics I was really surprised to see, and everything was from Statistica, I can't remember the name of the website. Hours watched comparatively of gameplay content on YouTube is astronomically more than all of HBO, Showtime, Hulu combined. So it's not, to you and I, very engaging content, and they're often very, very short bits of content that are watched over and over and over to get that hours watched number. But it's still very impressive, purely statistically, that there's that many eyeballs on that much content that you and I'd be like, what's the value in that to me?
Exactly, they love it. But
Yeah.
but that sort of brings us back to esports, which is this, everybody wants this.
Yes.
And they're going to fill arenas.
Yes.
And there are professional teams.
Well, that's another basic element of human nature, which is tribalism. Good or bad, people love their local sports teams.
Yes.
I'm not a huge sports guy, surprise, surprise, but I do love culture, and I love learning and watching the patterns and watching what plays out. And recently, and not to date this interview, but we had the inaugural game with the Lakers, and everyone I know was so excited about that game. They wanted to see it, and I'm like, so like, why exactly? And now I understand why. And it really is about the story of the players that were hired. You got LeBron and
Yeah.
that dynamic that's coming together. There's an interesting story there, and that story plays out on the court in some way and via the gameplay against these other teams. I think what the Blizzards of the world and the Riot Games of the world have realized is that the internet gives you an amazing reach where you can get people around the world that speak any language to watch day on date, that second, a performance of a virtual game. Great.
Yeah.
Where the money is in getting that tribalism funneled into local teams. So they're starting local regional teams that have sponsorships, that have merchandise, teamwear, and they're putting on local and regional events that then go up to nationals.
And that's where it's going to affect
Yes.
our industry with all the trucks and the cameras. And,
Yes.
And then I'm assuming
That's one of the ways.
And will they then post all of this? Like, what do the people that are here at SMPTE need to know in terms of how this might affect their work, how it might give them more to work with?
There's a couple different ways. One, I think there's a huge opportunity with technology in both the analytics, live analytics, and turning that into unique experience. The experience of consuming content is changing. We have got Netflix coming out with Choose Your Own Adventure series.
Yeah.
A lot of people are scoffing at that and shrugging at it. I'm looking forward to it. And actually there were already, I think, a number of, on Netflix, kids stories. I think they piloted this with some kid content where on a supported, you can interact with the story and go in different directions. I'm looking forward to that, but I may not be in the majority on that. But the bottom line is the way we consume content is changing, and esports is both a genre and a consumption experience at the same time that's different from traditional sports, it's different from traditional nonfiction and fiction. It's becoming its own genre. The opportunity for folks in this industry is to listen to the demands and maybe listen between the lines, so to speak, read between the lines of what's going on, and try to adapt, create technologies that are solving the problem of engagement.
Yep.
When folks watch esports, they tune in and out quite frequently. So esports is on television. ESPN has the Overwatch League. And from what I understand, Overwatch League, it's done well for esports, but okay for television. And if you speak to anyone that's diehard into esports, they'll tell you, yeah, they watch it on Twitch. They watch it online. You don't watch, it's hard to watch esports on television. And part of that is that Twitch is very non-committal. You can have it up on your device, you can check it, you can put it down, and you can still be out in public. Now that drives people crazy,
Yeah.
that people are always looking away at their phones.
Sure.
But it actually gives advertisers, ad creation, monetization systems and platforms an interesting challenge to solve, which is how do you catch the attention of the person that is watching something very sporadically. Television we like because it's like rounding all the people up in one place and you show one big thing
Right.
at them, which I know it's broken down by region and whatnot, but now you've got millions of individual devices which could have tracked all their buying behavior on Amazon and et cetera, that could be funneling into a system that then shows them an ad. How do you design the technology to do that? There are companies that are doing it and trying, but the future's wide open. There's a lot of opportunity for creating an engaging experience to maybe get them to look at it a little bit longer, set different time aside to do so, or after the event is done, catch them back in watching either replays or ancillary content that supports that main.
So there are many different ways this is going to affect our industry. People need to keep an eye on it. Are there any resources that you could point people to before we?
I should know. I
guess they could just Google eSports and.
Yeah, it's like any bubble. There's a lot of companies popping up that are pretending and trying, and they go away rather quickly. Statistica gathers a lot of interesting verified content. But the major news sources give you a high level, but there's a lot of new media platforms being formed to try to educate and offer more information on this, but it's still kind of the wild, wild west, even as far as that goes.
All right, well, thank you for filling us in and stopping by, and
sure, thank you.
Enjoy SMPTE. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you very much.